Hi, and welcome to this video about helping your horse find relaxation. Relaxation is extremely important and one of the foundational aspects in our horse training. So, in order for the horse to function correctly, there has to be an element of relaxation. Many horses struggle with relaxation because they don't thoroughly understand how to find that. So it's important in our training to be able to teach our horses that we can observe their tensions and we can help them to find a better relaxed body and mind. Just a little bit about the horse that I am working with today. I haven't done any warm up. I've just come straight in, but just to explain that she is a Dutch warm blood. She is bred by Jazz out of a Floristan mare, so she is a cross between a high level of Dutch blood and German blood. So Jazz horses are renowned for being sharp and sensitive, and in her younger days, before she could find some release and some relaxation in her body, she could be really quite sharp. So she only now shows very mild tension sometimes, but actually sometimes it's quite important to be able to look for those small things before they get to the big things. So that's what we're going to look at today. She has had a few days off as well because I have been busy doing training camps. So we will see what we've got here. So we'll just have a wander around and I'll explain what's going on for her with regards to her body and her mind. Now, with regards to relaxation, we need to think about the mind, body, and emotional state because they all influence one another. We understand about the nervous system and the fact that horses are prey animals, so they want to defend themselves and they go first of all into flight mode, then into fight mode, then into freeze mode. And quite often, the way our horses are in training today means that we still have that, but quite often they can be a mix of all of those things during their sessions. So when we have flight mode, that's obvious. They want to run a little bit. When we have fight mode, that's also a defense mechanism in the body. So maybe they're bracing or, struggling to find comfort. And then freeze mode, complete block, where lacking forward momentum. Usually the entire front locks up at this particular point. So those things impact how the horse is, and it's noticing the subtleties of those before they get to the big things. Now here is a moment to talk about. So she is now focusing externally outside the arena. Her attention has been taken over there. So instead of forcing her to move and to walk, I have stepped away and I've taken the pressure off of her, let the rope go slack. I'm not giving her particularly my attention. Now she's come back to me and can then proceed with working. So if you have a response in the body and in the head there, like she was distracted, then if more pressure comes on, so for example there, if I'd have just forced her through that and asked her to carry on working, then she would find that very difficult in the body because the body and the mind are elsewhere. So that would then lead to more tension brace. Maybe she would leap around a little bit, explode a little bit, or maybe she would move at all, or maybe she'd run. Because I'm forcing her through the system responses at that particular time. And that's not what we want to do. So this has happened again. So what we see is the head comes up. This time, however, she comes back super quick. So by not putting pressure on when the horse is already feeling external pressures, the horse then trusts that you see there is a problem in the body and then can actually find a little bit more relaxation more quickly. How does this work in the ridden? The same. So again, what happens is in the ridden, if you had a similar position, so say you're riding and then suddenly the horse sees something, or you feel the horse suddenly bracing and finding it a little difficult, then instead of putting your leg on and trying to push into something that is already reluctant, what should happen is that you actually soften. Because if the horse is then going into brace and into tension, pushing into that adds more pressure. So it's important to ease off at that particular point in the ridden. If you try to force the horse through, exactly the same thing will happen. Instead of coming out of the situation, it's highly likely you're going to have more trouble. Because when you're I'm sure you've all felt it, when you're kicking into something that doesn't want to go, what do? Push back further. Because they're going deeper into that, I don't want to go. So, and over time as well, these are things also that can lead to unsoundnesses, and because ultimately the horse is stuck in brace and is reluctant. The more you push into that, the more difficult things get for both of you. So understanding how your horse is feeling. So this is again a little bit of a moment for her, and then she comes out very, very quickly. So if I am seeing the little tiny things, so what do the little tiny things look like? Her head comes up, the ears prick, and she looks outside. I feel her in my hand a little, that she's reluctant to come forward at that point. So really important to understand what the feeling is. It's the same in the ridden, so it feels like you're running out of petrol. Yeah, sometimes though, the opposite is true. So sometimes they can go from this, something spooks them, and then they're running. So she doesn't do that really anymore, but some horses do. If that is the case, then what you're going to do there is you need to set boundaries. Obviously, we don't want them just disappearing into the middle of next week. We want to be able to give them a little boundary. So quite often with that, if they're taking a little disappear off in that direction, picking up your line and just walking a little in the opposite direction, so you're not going with them, but doing that in a way where you're not completely arguing. Yeah, just matter of fact, just focusing on, okay, I see your tension. Yes, we're having a little moment where you're running away. I'm just going to pick the line up and walk over here. So then you're bringing the attention away from the thing that the horse is worried about and back a little bit to you, but you're not having an emotional response into that. The biggest problem we have with the way that the horses are is that quite often when the horse shows a response that we are not particularly interested in, then what happens is we go with them. So if a horse is going to disappear or is going to freeze and is reluctant to move, quite often we go into panic mode as well. instead of controlling and co-regulating. So what that means is, if you can find a place in your nervous system where you're regulating yourself and finding a better place to be, so you're not tense, you're not following the situation that the horse is creating, then the horse is more likely to follow you. Okay, so one of the biggest ways to do that is through breath. So one of the things that you can do, and it's a hard thing sometimes when a horse is showing a behavior, it's very hard to regulate yourself. And that is one of the things. Most of the time, what happens if a horse is showing a behavior, especially under competition pressure, you want to get out of it as quick as you can. But if you can take your time and try to find your own peace in your own body by breath and softening yourself, you'll help your horse actually out of the situation, and then the next time it won't go so deep in. So one of the things that you can do is to ground yourself, so really to feel like you're soft in your body in that particular moment. So even if you're on them, that you actually soften and you try to soften your shoulders, soften your back, soften yourself, and then breathe. And breathe so that you breathe right into your belly and your exhale becomes longer than your inhale. So you actually find in yourself that you can then find a relaxed state in that moment. Because if you work like that, it's so much easier to find that the horse is then going to come out of that. So if you're both having a moment and just having an argument at that point, which is often what happens, because everybody wants to get out of that situation, and it's usually done by controlling rather than. So here she's reluctant, she's left again. I'm not going to ask the question. All I'm going to do is wait, and then she's quick to come back. So by relieving the pressure and not adding to it in that moment, what you're doing is actually then bringing the horse out of it faster. You can do that with your breath. So really feeling like you're not holding tension in your joints, that you're actually able to find that release and that softness in yourself. So in your wrists, in your shoulders, in your back, in your hips, in your knees. And that doesn't matter whether that's on the ground or on the top. It's all the same. Because if there's tension, good. So there she took a deeper breath. She's not particularly tense, but the more you can get the diaphragm and the breath working, the more possibility you're going to have in connection. So again, I'm just going to, and then she's really quick to come back. So as soon as I ease off, she knows I'm not going to keep the pressure on. So then she's actually able then to come out of the situation a little quicker. So it's really important to notice the small things and really try to find the release. So what we're looking for is any time you get the top of the head, take a little bit of tension. They sometimes can crinkle the nostrils a little bit. The breath goes shallow. You can feel it in your hand, and that's the same whether you're riding or whether you're on top. So the same can be here, like I'm taking her deep into the bend and then she's having a little bit of like, oh, it's quite hard. So the same thing happens. Just because she's not spooking doesn't mean that isn't a relevant response. And so to force her through that is not the right thing to do at that particular point. So trying to find a little more space, so she's going to do the same thing here. So by taking the pressure off and then trying to find the release and the softness is much better than trying to force the horse through where they're having a problem. And if you're forcing the horse through where they're having a problem with the whip, with the spurs, whatever that looks like, you're only gonna create more brace. And so then finding relaxation gets harder and harder and harder. So we really want to try to find that we can work with our own bodies, and that's on or off the horse. It doesn't matter. So again, there she's struggling a little bit there. You go deeper into the bend. She finds that a little bit more difficult. So then she pulls a little bit into the pole. Instead of forcing her through the exercise, I just let her figure that out. Then she finds more space and then she can do it better. So each time there is that issue, every time after, if I notice what's going on, then what happens is she comes out of it quicker. So it's really important to think about, okay, if I can notice and feel, so it's not just about noticing with your eyes, but feel in your body and feel in your hand, and feel in your breath, right? Because they will affect you. So when you start to feel these things, you really want to think about, okay, how can I help in that particular moment? And most of the time, relieving the pressure is the thing that you need to do. So the pressure in that case, so for example, if you've got something spooky, the horse is finding the pressure from that, then you're coming with the legs and the whip and the spurs, then you're also the pressure. If you take all of those things away and just find the softness when they're a little bit leaving the room, then you're not pressure. Then they can release a little bit and soften in that particular moment, and then you can ask. So pushing into a body that is already tight just adds pressure. It's very important to think about, okay, I need to create release, not more pressure at that point. And I know these things obviously have to be safe. So you do need to train this at home. And I know that there's more problems when you go hacking or go to a competition or whatever that looks like. But the more you do the tiny little nuances at home, the easier these things get, because you're really working on showing the horse that you see them. And that is mostly what humans want, but it's also what horses want, or animals in general. They want to be seen for the stress that they're under. When people, humans or horses or whatever, when stress is recognized in that particular moment, then the first thing that happens is everybody feels a little bit better because the stress has been seen. And then because that stress has been seen, action can be taken, co-regulation by either another human to human or an animal to human. So co-regulation is possible. So horses do it for humans, but humans can also do it for horses. We can actually find relaxation by influencing another, by finding relaxation in ourselves. So just by holding space. And what that means is grounding yourself, so softening your body, not focusing on the thing that is the problem, taking the deep breaths, figuring it out. You can also, so with a horse, you can also help the body release by movement. So one of the really good things you can do, especially, so you can see with her then, she's going deeper and deeper into, like, I'm going to open the neck, I'm going to find more space, rather than going up. So instead of then going up and then looking into the distance, she's coming more into the space. So what you can do as well is use shoulders, so little bits of bending and maneuvering the shoulders a little bit in and out will give you further access to the body. So she's having a little bit of a moment again there when I want to come left. So again, I'm not going to force her through that because she's pulling a little bit back. And so she needs a moment. And that's the time where I'm going to back off. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to just not focus particularly, just soften. She's not through it yet. So I just wait, look at something in the distance, don't focus on her, and just take my time. When she's ready, she will come back to me. So all of that has to go through the body when her nervous system is ready and her body has released the thing that triggered the behavior in the first place. Now she's coming back. So the mouth is a little bit moving now, and now she's back with me. So these little tiny things are important to notice, because if you miss them, you miss an opportunity to find a release. And the release is where you're going to find the relaxation. So this may look like absolutely nothing, but it is huge. Okay? And it is a tiny little thing that you can work on at home. So all I'm doing is moving the shoulders in and out, and I'm letting her find that space. And every time, instead of forcing her into it, so here, struggling again with the left turn, she's decided to leave. Now she's back. So that one was quicker because of what I did over there. So each time you find, and now she's super soft. And every time you find that release, everything gets a little bit better. And that's the same in anything. So I want to find that release in her body so she's really able to find space, to find breath, to find lightness, to find forward momentum without brace. So she's very much open and fluid in how she is. So again there, every time I turn left a little bit, she is a little bit struggling. So again, that's information for me. Today, that's difficult. So it's quite good because then you're seeing, the problems, the initial thing that causes the problems in her body, but also in her mind and then in her emotional state. And if I come after her at that point, it's not productive because she'll just create more tension rather than more softness. So it's very important to really feel that you can work a little bit with that and work a little bit through it rather than as in together, not just ask the horse to do the thing that you want it to do. Yeah, because that really just it's not productive, especially if the horse has got the brakes on. So teaching this in a very clear way at home will influence the horse out under more stressful circumstances. And most people say, I don't have the problems at home. Yes, you do. Yeah, because I have these problems. She lives here. This is her arena. And you can see what she's doing. You may think you don't have the problems, but they are there. They're just there in smaller degrees. So working within that is important. When we have the tensions, then the body can't do the thing because the body then is locking. And so we've got to work with all of those things in order to find the flow, find the space, find the lightness, find the thing that we are having the block with in the first place. And then we can just go deeper and deeper into this, let go. Then we can have forward momentum without having the brace. So it's really important. If you've stuck with me this long, put in the comments where your horse originates tension from. So what you feel when you ride, or what you feel when you lead them, or any of those types of things, where does it start? Okay, so where do you find the tension pattern starts? Good. And then how are you going to deal with that? Thinking about what we've just said here. So remember, not getting involved, understanding that you just ground yourself, you let that pass through the body for themselves. If they're stopping, if they're disappearing, then you just pick the rope up, walk a little in the opposite direction, then let it go. So that you're saying, no, I'm not going with you. Yeah, so it's just a little bit of like, no, we're going over here. And then also accessing the body through softness and bend. So changing direction will help create fluidity. So when the horse is tense, you have the compression patterns, you have the brace, and it's very important to try to find, how can I get the horse out of that? How can I find more alignment in the spine, more suppleness in the body, more relaxation in the mind? Because the more you go through all of those things, the easier everything gets.